Hey everybody, this is Anthony from VR Roundtable. Welcome to episode 55 of the show. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Gary, coming to us live from the UK. And I also have Chris. I'm not sure if Chris is in Maine or Vermont or wherever the heck he is. Chris, where are you?
I'm in Burlington, Vermont. Yeah.
Okay. Burlington, Vermont. How's it going, man? What's the latest? Any new updates or anything going on as far as like your self-driving car or some kind of crazy thing you've gotten recently?
It's going pretty well. I actually have my Inertian Raptor 2 electric skateboard back there. It goes 33 miles an hour, and it's pretty awesome. So I've been riding that a lot. I ride that to class, and I'm getting 2 new review units of electric skateboards this week. So it's going to be busy for me.
Wow, I bet you your parents have probably called their insurance agent and said, "Hey, can I up my insurance a little bit?"
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We have, of course, Gary in the UK. Gary, what is going on over there? Any have you got any skateboards or electric cars or anything over there, Gary?
I used to have a skateboard when I was obsessed with Back to the Future a long time ago. I picked up a skateboard, but no, I'm very, very poor on the skateboard, so it's not really worth mentioning. No, over here, so it's been pretty good. I've had a few problems with my Oculus Rift. I've not mentioned this to you guys, but for some reason, I think there's something wrong with the USB connection on my Rift. It's okay for the most part, but it seems to like have a slight loose connection in there, and I think it's something to do with the fact because I sort of alternate between my Rift and my Vive through the link box on the HTC Vive link box. I don't know if like unplugging that and plugging it in all the time is affecting it or something, but I've got an extension, a USB extension now that I'm plugging it into, and I've sort of taped that up so it can't really move. And I think it's sorted the problem out, but I'm really reluctant to buy a new cable for the Rift because it's £50. It just seems a little bit too much for a 4-meter cable, but I guess I'll have to do that if it comes down to it.
Yeah, I sometimes have a problem with my Rift where, because I use the link box, the Vive link box as well, just because it's already extending it away from the PC, and so it works. But I do worry about constantly swapping it out, because if that link box like dies on you, I'm sure HTC will charge you like $60 or something. They charge so much money for everything. And then, but one problem I do have with my Rift is like, I'll go to play it and it'll say something about like the HDMI cable is not plugged in. And all I have to do is on the back of my video card, just unplug it, plug it back in, and then boom, it works fine. But, just some weird little things like that.
I get that exact same problem with the HDMI connection for some reason. And I sort of turn off the link box, then turn it back on. Sometimes that will resolve the problem. Sometimes it won't. And sometimes I'll need to do the same as you, actually unplug it from my video card. Sometimes if you just do a reset of the PC, it'll sort it out as well. But what I'm actually going to get is a HDMI switch. I don't want to be adjusting any of these cables anymore. I want to leave them where they are and just use like some kind of switch or something like that for both USB and the HDMI.
Yeah. Also, speaking of broken or annoying problems, one of my Vive wands randomly has been turning off lately, so I have to just turn it on. It's super annoying. Like when I shake it around, something gets loose. I don't know. I don't want to have to buy another Vive wand, so hopefully it'll just fix itself.
Yeah, there's lots of like guides and stuff online about how to open up your own Vive wand and try to repair it. But you have to be one of these type of people that has like steady hands and you can do fine, delicate work. And I've always been crappy at that. I had a HTC Vive controller that was partially broken. I mean, not really broken, but basically it would track, kind of like it would trail off when the battery got low. When the battery was nice and fully charged, it pretty much tracked fine. I used it as my left-hand controller. And then I finally bought a new Vive controller, and I finally sold this old broken one. Well, not broken, but, partially non-working to this dude for like $70. And he's probably going to open it up, repair it, and it'll be freaking brand spanking new, like as good as new. And I paid like $154 or something for a brand new controller. But you have to be, if you're able to open up things and screw around with it, you can probably fix stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't want to keep going on about this before the show actually even starts, but just one last thing. I did, because my Vive controller, my original one, did break, and I did open it up and I repaired it, but you do have to be very careful with it, especially with there's a ribbon that goes to the very bottom of the controller, which is the power ribbon. Really, it's how you turn the controller on, and if you disconnect that, it's not one of these ones that you can just push back into the slot. It actually breaks the connection altogether, and it can sort of ruin the controller. And I repaired it once, everything was fine, and then something went wrong with it again, and I tried to open it up again. And like if you've not got a really, really steady hand, you can sort of wreck these things very easily.
You know what would be nice? It would be nice if we had somebody in the Vive Reddit community that was like a fixer-upper guy, and he just specialized in this, and he was kind of like the community guy, and he would charge money, he would make money from it, but he wouldn't like rape you with it, and he could fix touchpads and maybe even broken lighthouses and all kinds of things. I'm sure somebody would get a lot of business, but yeah. I mean, it is shipping it back and forth, and then the time it takes to repair it can, because you got to, I mean, time is valuable, and if the dude is spending 30 minutes repairing your controller, what is that worth to him? He's going to want to charge you for it, and then you got the shipping back and forth and all of that. So it can be interesting from that standpoint. But basically, guys, let's go ahead and get into the show, episode 55. We decided we're going to try something a little bit different this week. We're going to go off script a little bit. And normally we always have the news at the beginning of the show, and then we cover games later. And I was telling the fellas that one thing I've noticed is sometimes we spend so much time on the news going over every little news story that when we get to the games, we kind of feel rushed because we don't want to have like a 3-hour episode. And so we get to the games and it's like, man, we don't have much of a show left. So we kind of have to rush through it. So we decided this week we're going to try to flip the script a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and start off with games first. And the first game we're going to start off with is From Other Suns is having their beta weekend. A free beta weekend, basically. The game is not going to be available until later. We don't have a release date, actually, as far as I'm aware. I think it might be coming later this year, but this is kind of the beta that they're having for it, and they want to get people in there, get people trying it out, get people seeing how it is. I'm going to kick it over to Gary. Gary, I believe you were able to try this out.
Yeah, I managed to get in there last night for a while, and when I first jumped in, because I didn't know a lot about this game, I'd heard Chris mention it a few times, and I'd seen a few things online on some of the news sites, but I didn't know a great deal about it. So it was actually quite a pleasant surprise to me when I went in there for the first time. But I did hear that this was sort of a multiplayer co-op game only, which it still might be. I don't know exactly how it works. Somebody might be able to explain that to me a little bit more clearly. But when I went in last night, I went through a tutorial, and then I went into a mission, which I completed on my own. There was nobody else in there. I didn't sort of go out of my way to find a single player mode or anything like that. I just sort of went into the game and progressed through this mission on my own, and then ended it there. But then today I went in again, and I was teamed up with 2 other guys who, and it was really good because they were sort of new to it as well. They'd only played that same mission as me, so we were sort of new to this game. I guess it's only just a beta; it came out yesterday, so we were all sort of finding our way through this. But it was really, really enjoyable. The multiplayer aspect was great. If you teamed up with a good couple of people, as I was today, it made for a really enjoyable experience. And it helps when you're teamed up with somebody who plays the role quite well. When I was teamed up with this guy who, when he was going through the level, as soon as he saw an enemy, he was sort of shouting out contact, and then we'd all sort of dive out and then shoot the enemies, and this kind of stuff. Really got into that role. And it helps on games like Onward when you're teamed up with people like that as well. I think it really helps. So From Other Suns, just to take a step back, it's a sci-fi game, and you're part of a crew on a ship which is going out to sort of the extremities of where humankind has explored. And then you're in control of this ship, and you can do various things within this. You have to manage various systems on the ship, but you're also then able to teleport out and onto various other ships as well that you come into contact with. When you teleport on these ships, it's almost like this is the level, this is your own ship is sort of the hub, and then you teleport off onto the individual levels, and each level is procedurally generated, so you've got every ship that you come in contact with will be different. My main worry with this is the fact that perhaps you might get a little bit of similarity between all the ships. You know, you want a lot of assets in order to get some kind of difference between all the ships that you're exploring. And from the I've only played sort of 3 missions in total so far, all the ships look very, very similar, all the enemies look very similar. I know that there is some progression and some difference in the enemies as you progress through the game, but so far, you know, it's all very samey to me at the moment. That's one of my main concerns with it being procedurally generated. They've got a limited number of assets that they can call upon in order to create these ships. But yeah, I had a great time with it both last night and today. You know, I'm really want to go in and try this game again in the multiplayer form, and hope I get teamed up with some cool pair of guys again as I did today.
Okay, yeah, I tried this game 2 different times, but I still haven't actually seen the game yet. The very first time I got in there, so this is Gunfire Games, and they've done Chronos. I believe they worked with Oculus Studios to make Dead and Buried. I think there's probably another game they did too. Gunfire Games has done a lot of VR games, and so they have this experience in VR. So I was definitely looking forward to this. But it's funny, I hadn't really read very much about what this game was. Hadn't really seen a ton of footage. I only really saw that like one screenshot that everybody's seen. And I wasn't even sure if I got into this game and it's like, oh, I need to grab my chair and sit down because this is a seated game. I didn't even know. I went into it completely blind, but it is a stand-up game, and you have trackpad locomotion, so you can move all around fast as can be, kind of similar to Gunheart in terms of like you can move really fast around the level. And I got into this level and I was with 3 other dudes, and I heard them talk, like they were all talking and joking and saying stuff, and I'm just like looking around this environment, but I'm in a completely different room from where they are. And then finally I met up with them. And I guess what happened is one of the guys that was in the group, he grabbed this key card, but somehow he dropped the key card and it like fell through the floor or something. And he went back to where the key card was and it never appeared again. And so we were kind of just stuck. We couldn't really do anything. So we were just kind of walking around, and I was just looking at all the environments and the lighting. I thought it looked really good. It flowed smoothly. The performance was pretty good. But we kind of got stuck. One of the things I'll say though, being in this group of 3 people, like I like playing single player games more than multiplayer. And it's not that I don't want to play with other people. I'd love to play with good friends of mine, but you do get into these random situations with, you know, just randos basically. And there were 2 guys that were in here, and they were like wannabe comedians, man. They were just like, I swore that they were doing a YouTube video and it was like some kind of major bit, you know, and it's like, oh no, I'm in someone's YouTube video. They're trying to be as funny as can be. And I was like, oh God. So anyway, I got out of there and I tried to start a single player mode, I guess, because you can go in there when you're first setting it up. I think there's an option where you can make it private, kind of similar to Gunheart from that standpoint, where you can just turn off the friends option and make it into a private thing. And I did that and I got in there, but I was just exploring the environment and I couldn't find this key card. What I did do though, is I went to the bridge and they have this like map of all these different stars and stuff. And I hit one of the buttons and it was like zoom, zoom, you know, and it showed a different planet. And I was like, oh, this is cool. If you can go to different planets, almost like Mass Effect style, that would be cool. But Gary, the way I understand it, you're stuck on ships, so you never go down to the planet.
That's my understanding as well. And it's a shame because that's what I was referring to earlier, where I feel like all the levels are going to be very, very similar in terms of their appearance and what you're doing in there. It would be great if you could sort of go down to the planets and have a different kind of mission. And you're right, you can select a private game. I didn't know if that just was exclusively then single player, or if that was a private game reserved for you, so you can invite friends into there or something. But hopefully, I mean, because I'd like to try this as a single player. I'm not really, a multiplayer guy, as we've mentioned before, but I think the experience I had today is sort of making me think maybe I will try this game multiplayer, because it was pretty good.
Yeah, Chris. So, Chris, you are a multiplayer guy. You love to play with all your buddies, different various VR games. And I understand that you are very late to the party with a game, but you finally picked it up and you tried it. What's this game that you recently picked up?
Yeah, it's Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, which is essentially like a bomb defusal game. There's a bomb manual that you can actually print out and you like hand out to all your friends. They each have their own copy of it. And then it's like an instruction manual of how to defuse this bomb. I bought it on the Steam sale. It was like $4.50 or something. But in the past, I've had it on my Gear VR. But it's nice because it supports motion controllers now, and it didn't used to. So that kind of makes it a lot more fun. And yeah, I'll show you some of my manuals.
Did you print out the 22-page manual?
I have like 6 of these or something. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody says you got to do that to have like the best time with it. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to pass out pens, have scrap paper. It's really fun though. It gets everyone really involved, and you just roll out who's in VR. Doing the bomb stuff, and it has really good like ambient sound effects. So like, the music's building up constantly. You have like a 5-minute timer. It can be 3 minutes, but oh my God, it gets so intense. Everyone's like screaming at each other. I had like 6 or 7 people over last night. So we all just played that for a long time. That was a lot of fun. Of course, everyone still wants to play Gorn though, because like that's a really good party game too. But we played a lot of Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. So yeah, I recommend it.
Gorn's a great party game, but you might get your freaking TV destroyed if you get everybody into that game, because you'll be swinging around wildly. Okay, so why don't we go back to Gary now? Gary, go ahead and pick one of the games that you've been screwing around with.
Well, I want to talk about Luna. This is a demo that we received from the developer, who are Phenomena. It's FUN Omina, so it's sort of a play on words there. But the developer is comprised of a couple of people that came from that game company that created Journey. Now, Robin Hunicke and Martin Middleton both worked at that game company, and they sort of were one of the driving forces behind creating the game Journey, which everybody knows, it's a very acclaimed PS3 game. I played it on PS4. So, they set up this separate development studio, an independent development studio called Phenomena, and they've created a few games before, but this is sort of their first game, which is comprising flat gaming and also VR. So this sort of was something that interested me. I actually heard Robin on Kind of Funny Games Cast a few weeks ago, and she was talking about Luna, and that just sort of sparked my interest in this kind of game, because I liked Journey. I really enjoyed playing Journey. I played through it in one sitting. I thought it was a great game, and a little bit unexpected for me, because I knew that people held this game in such high regard, but from everything I saw of it, it didn't really appeal to me, I've got to say. Having played through it, I can certainly understand the appeal of that game. So we received a demo for Luna. Now, this is the full game of this is coming out on October 17th, and it's for PC VR, flat PC as well, but the VR portion of this is coming out for HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, and Windows Mixed Reality. Now, I'll just give you a little description here of Luna. This is what's on the website for Luna. Luna is a whimsical fable that takes place in a star-tangled galaxy where a young bird must make its way home. The game is sort of okay. If you've played Journey, you know the tone and atmosphere of what to expect from this game. Okay, this is similar in certain respects to that game. In terms of gameplay and actual look, it's nothing like it at all. But there is certain things that you can certainly draw upon from. You know that this developer has made both of these games. Now, I've got a few words down here to describe this game: subtle, abstract, and surreal. The problem I've got with this demo is that it's a little bit short to really get a good idea about this game. The art style is very, very good. It's sort of done it in like a origami kind of art style, and it's something I've not seen before in any game really, and certainly not a VR game like this. But you look down; it's a puzzle game, I would say. It's but you look down on sort of a diorama of a scene, and then various things happen. You have to solve some small constellation kind of puzzles where you're sort of moving stars around to create constellations, and then these constellations create shapes which correspond to the next scene that you play a part of. So, for example, you'll move stars around and it will create a flower, a petal. And then you can use this object within the next scene and progress through this next puzzle. It's very difficult to describe this game without playing it. This is one thing that I want to say. Now, let me just go through some of the atmosphere and everything like that, because that's really where this game thrives. The music, the graphic aesthetic is very, very good, very well realized. Presentation wise, flawless, absolutely perfect in terms of how polished the game is coming across, even this demo stage. So to describe the actual gameplay, we've got a spectrum. We have games which are hardcore games driven by various mechanics, and then we have experiences at the other end. We're used to this kind of stuff within VR. There's a spectrum there. Now, where Luna falls on this spectrum, it's edging far more towards the experience spectrum, at least within this demo, than it is in terms of game. Now, to take you through the demo, as I say, you start off just doing these very, very light puzzles, very simple puzzles with constellations, working out these shapes that will correspond later in the game, I'm sure. But then you go into this diorama scene, as I mentioned. And then this diorama scene, the first one that's in the demo, is just a scene which is sort of filled with, you have a body of water and then some small hills and things like that, some islands that are sticking out of it. And this bird, now the game is revolving around this bird, okay? Now, what you have to do within this first scene is place these objects that you created in terms of constellations. So like the flowers, you place the flowers around various locations, the trees and things like that. And by doing this, what you're doing is illuminating the world. You're bringing life to this world. And then beyond that, you can also move your controller through these objects and create sounds. Now, this all goes together and brings the scene together until the scene is complete. When the scene is complete, you'll move on to the next stage and you'll have a small animation. It's very difficult, as I said before, it's very difficult to describe this game without either seeing a video or experiencing it for yourself. And especially in this demo form, because it's so abstract and as I say, there's subtle things going on within this game. Let me take it back to the journey thing, just to clarify things a little bit easier, because if I was to play the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of Journey, I'd be struggling to describe that game as to what you're actually doing throughout that game as a whole. And Luna is very similar to that from that respect. I played this demo lasts probably 15, 20 minutes, and it's very interesting. And what I played, I enjoyed. But in order to describe it to somebody else, for them to completely understand what this game is all about is almost impossible, really. So what I'd say is when this game is released and you get a little bit more details on what it's about and where the story comes from, because it's based on sort of a fable, which is not a fable that's been a famous fable or anything like that. This is a story that they've created, but it's a fable nonetheless. And the thing about fables is they're not based on literal interpretation or anything. They're based on various things, really, but it's difficult to describe them from one person in a literal form. I don't know if anybody else, I've got a couple of other things I just want to say about this game, but has anybody else played this through this demo at all?
I wanted to play it, but I couldn't find where you got the demo. Like, I went on Steam and I looked in our VR Roundtable thing. I couldn't find it anywhere. And this was just yesterday. I was like, what is this Luna thing that Gary's talking about? So this is the thing that was in, the Microsoft mixed reality trailer. That's like this was the Luna that was in there, right? Yeah. I wonder if the retail version of this game could be delayed for this mixed reality platform. Like maybe it'll hit that Windows store first, and then maybe a month later it shows up on Steam. I don't know. That I'm just throwing that out there.
No, it's not. I believe it's being released on both platforms on October 17th. So it will be available on both platforms. But, I think October the 17th is when really the update comes out and you're getting all these other mixed reality headsets being released. So I don't know if it's been designed to sort of coincide with those releases as well. You see, Luna is a game, I feel like it's coming from a genuine place. This is not going to be a game for everybody. You've got, as I say, you've got games which are very, very gamey games. You've got things like COD, which they're appealing to a mass market, and they know what they want to do. They know what they want to achieve, and they do that. For me, I feel like there are certain devs which will do things to create games for the masses, wide appeal, and this kind of stuff. Luna there are devs that will create a piece of art and throw it out there, and if it appeals to a wider audience, then that's great. That's what they want it to do. But they're creating it more for themselves, I feel. And if it appeals to a wider audience, as I think they did with Journey, something like Journey, I feel that feels like a game that they created for themselves. It feels very genuine, very heartfelt, and that sentiment appealed to a wide range of people. And I feel like they're going for the same thing with Luna. It's very similar from that point of view. You won't expect another Journey kind of experience. I don't think the payoff at the end of this will be like Journey, but there will be some kind of payoff. I'm certain of that. As I say, this is only a demo, so it's early days, but I'm interested to see where this goes, because, one final thing I'll make on this is, if I was to play a demo by an unknown developer, they just sent us this and I was going to try it, I had no history of that developer at all, would I be giving it as much of a chance as I'm going to give Luna? And it's a difficult question, because, as I say, if I'd have played 15 minutes of Journey, would I have given that the chance? I don't know. But knowing what they did with Journey and knowing what they could potentially do with Luna, it makes me far more excited for this, based on, 15, 20-minute demo that I've already played. Sorry to go on too long about this, but I'm still excited about this title.
Yeah, no, it sounds like the kind of, I know what you're talking about. There's these experiences out there that if you get into it, you have to kind of just go with the flow, and you just have to be open to it, and you just have to kind of let it go where it goes. And then you have other gamers where they go into that same type of experience and they're like, what the hell is this? I'm not shooting anything, like, what's going on, man? And so you have different kind of gamers out there, and I try to be open to things and try some of these different, more experiential type games. And with VR, it's just being in that world, the atmosphere and everything can really do it. And we do have another game that we're going to talk about in a little bit here that is very similar to that. But I want to bring up this one game that I played this week. It's called 2MD VR Football. Okay. And so I got to give you guys just a quick little backstory about me and football, because I've been playing video games for as long as video games have pretty much existed, right? And back in the Atari days, I had an Atari, and I remember playing Atari football with my brother just for hours and hours, yelling back and forth. And it was three little guys moving around on the screen. And then I remember when I got the Nintendo Entertainment System, I remember when Tecmo Bowl came out, and oh my God, I played the hell out of Tecmo Bowl. And then I got a Sega Genesis, and it was John Madden football. And so basically every single year that went by, I always was looking for a great football game. I used to be like the hardcore sports gamer dude that would play these football games and stuff. And so I've always been into football games, but in the last 10 years, I don't buy Madden. I haven't played any football games hardly. I haven't been into it like I used to be into it. But now that I'm into VR, I've always thought, man, when are they going to have a football game in VR that really puts it together? And so what happened is, I'll give you guys a quick little story of what happened with me getting this game, because it's kind of slightly interesting. There was a tiny little bit of controversy and stuff. And so I figure it might be kind of cool to go over this, what happened. So Tuesday of this week, it's like late at night. I'm about to go to sleep, but I check Reddit real quick for whatever unknown reason right before I'm about to go to sleep. And I see this thread where they're talking about me and my buddy made a football game, and it had a little YouTube video that showed a trailer of this game. And I saw it real quick and I was like, wow, that looks super colorful. That looks really fun. And then I was looking at the thread. Nobody chimed in saying that they bought it and whether it was good or not. And I went ahead and shot the developer a message, and I said, hey man, VR Roundtable would love to try this game out. And then I went to bed, and then the next day I get up and I'm doing all kinds of stuff. And then I'm on Reddit and I see a message, and it was the developer. He's like, hey, yeah, we'd love you to try the game out. And he gave me a code for the game. Actually gave me 2 codes. And what we'll do is later in the show, we'll do a little giveaway option where somebody could win that other code. But so I have the code for the game. I pop it into the account. It's downloading. I'm working on other stuff. Then it's done, and I go play the game. And so I put the headset on. And when I put the headset on, you start off and you're in a locker room. Okay. And so you have this whiteboard there, and you have a coach that's talking to you, but he's not a human character. All the little football guys that are in this game, they're like these little blocking dummies, you know, like that you see like when the teams are practicing and they're practicing their blocking and they're running, you know, they'll have like these 4 things set up, these little blocking dummies. All the little characters are these little weeble wobble type blocking dummies, but he has a hat on, he has a beard, and he's talking like a coach and all that stuff. And he's talking about, and on this whiteboard, you can change your plays and you can do this and you can do that. And I was like, I just want to get into the game. I just want to get into the game. And then he mentioned if you grab the helmet. And so I grabbed the helmet and put it on. And then so the game starts to load up. And when I first got in there and I was in this stadium, it was magical, man. It was truly magical for me because it's so freaking colorful. The uniforms for my team, it was like Ohio State against Michigan. It was like I was in Ohio State Stadium. I'm looking around. It's sunny. You know, there's a crowd. Now, the crowd is just these weeble wobble things that are bouncing up and down, different colors and stuff. But it just, the vibe, man, the clouds and everything. I got all my players here, you know. And so what the game is, it's basically a quarterback mini game. You hike the ball, and then you're throwing the ball to your receivers, and if they catch it and they run, and you're just trying to work your way down the field. And if you throw an interception, that's not good, but you start over, you get the ball right back. And then at the end of that little mini game session, then there's a bonus round where you're trying to throw the ball through these hoops. And that's all it really is. But I was just completely blown away by the atmosphere. I was blown away by standing in this stadium and feeling like I'm really in this stadium, and it's sunny and it feels like Saturday, and, you know, like a Saturday college football game. And I just felt the vibe, and it was super cool. And so I'm playing this, and I'm like got goosebumps going up and down my arm, because I'm like, this is like the dream that I dreamed of, you know? And so then I get into the next game, and the stadium is completely different with a completely different feel. Now, instead of being like in this outdoor college stadium, I feel like I'm in an NFL domed stadium, like the New Jersey Meadowlands, if it was a dome stadium, because the team that I was playing, they were all green and they kind of looked like the Jets. Like, dude, I'm in the New Jersey Meadowlands. I'm playing the Jets in this beautiful stadium. It has different lighting. And so I play this, right? So I go through this little stadium, and I'm throwing the ball, I'm doing the plays and stuff. Then I get to the next game, and the next game I'm in this high school stadium. Okay, it looks like a high school, right? But it's nighttime. It's overcast. There's clouds everywhere. You see the moon. It almost looks like a werewolf would be somewhere out there, because it looks almost creepy. And you're in this like high school field, and it just has the small little bleachers. you look behind you and there's a big, like the town's water tower. It's like Texas, like Friday Night Lights or something, right? And the lighting is completely different so that it has kind of this nighttime view. And so I'm playing that. And so that was my very first play session with the game. And so I get out of this play session and I'm like, oh my God, I'm blown away by this. Like, this has really blown me away, because I played VR Sports Challenge for the Oculus Rift, which is made by Sanzaro Games. And they have a football mode in there. And it's pretty decent, and it has voiceover, and you're more of a real football player. And maybe the graphics might be better in certain ways, but it doesn't have any of this vibe. It has none of this vibe. The vibe that is in this is just powerful. And so I get out of the game and I write articles for this website, VR Game Rankings. And I'm like, I got to write an article about this. And so I went, boom, I wrote an article about it. And the article that I wrote, I felt like I was passionate about it because this game like spoke to me. And I have a personal, like, my football history, my video game history, and VR and all that. So I thought I made it actually a relatively decent article. So I went and posted it on Reddit, in the Oculus subreddit, which I normally never do. I'm not the guy that does that. I very rarely do this, right? But I just was like, fuck it, I'm doing it. And I posted it, and it caught a little bit of a wave of momentum, and a lot of people checked it out. But what happened is a couple people came in and they were like, you're a freaking shill, man. What? So they gave you a code, they gave you a $10 code, and they bought your review. And like it kind of got into a little controversial thing there for a minute. And I just want to clear the air and say, yeah, this developer gave me a code. Yeah, they gave me a code, but $10 is not going to buy my review. First of all, this wasn't a review. I told everybody this isn't a review. This is my first impressions. Now, am I guilty of something? Yeah, I am guilty. I'm guilty of being incredibly excited about seeing something and coming off that high, that euphoria, writing an article about it. But in my article, I had a paragraph where I said, you don't play defense. The AI isn't very good. You're just doing a quarterback mini game and a little bonus round. And I said, really, the thing that is really impressing me about this is the stadiums. It's the vibe. It's the atmosphere. It's not necessarily the game itself. And so anyway, there was a little bit of controversy with that, but that was kind of interesting. But I just thought it'd be a cool little story to tell. But one other little thing I'll say about the gameplay of this game is it really is just a quarterbacking mini game, but I love the vibe. I love the stadium. Supposedly there's 8 of them. I think I've only seen 4. So what I'm playing for is to see these other stadiums and get that feeling. But one of the really cool things about this game is that first time I was in there, I'm standing there as the quarterback, right? I got my offensive line guys, my wide receivers over there, wide receiver over there, but I have this running back standing right next to me, and I have a running back standing on this side of me. And I thought, wouldn't it be a cool idea if I could send this running back so he just runs that way, goes that way a little bit, and I can throw him a nice little pass and get him on a nice run play where he could go all the way to the house. And what you can do in this game, you can draw up your own plays. That's a cool thing. Before you get into the game, there's a chalkboard. You have an eraser. You can erase anybody's play. You can grab the magic marker and you can make them go wherever the hell you want them to go. And then when you get into the game, that's the exact route they're going to run. And so I went ahead and did that for this little running back guy. And so I'm in the game again. I hike the ball. He goes out over there. First of all, I'm looking over here. I'm trying to fake it a little bit. I look over here, and then I turn, I throw it to my running back. I loft it to him. He catches it in motion. Now, these are these little weeble wobble guys. They don't have hands. So when they catch it, it's like they're standing like this, and the ball just lands on their shoulder, and it's just on their shoulder, and they're weeble wobbling. But he took off, made it around the corner, and went all the way for the fucking touchdown. It was like a 60-yard play. And the thing that was so freaking cool about this is I'm standing here as the quarterback, and I throw this little 5-yard pass to this running back, right? And he freaking did all the work. 60 yards down the field, and I'm standing here as a quarterback. I have the quarterback's view, and I see the guy running and running and running, and he's getting smaller and smaller. And then I see him get in the touchdown, and the freaking fireworks go off, and I'm like, yeah, touchdown. And it was so cool because I had the view of what a real NFL quarterback has, because sometimes these real quarterbacks, right, they'll throw a tiny little pass and the guy does all the work and gets the touchdown. And then in the newspaper the next day, it's like Aaron Rodgers threw a 70-yard touchdown. No, he really threw a 3-yard pass that the guy ran 67 yards. And you get that feeling, and I just love the vibe. And so the people that were in that thread that think I'm a shill and think my review got bought and all that, not even close, man. I'm sticking to my comments. I still love this game. It's not for everybody. It's the type of game you're going to play it for a couple of weeks and you're probably not going to want to play it anymore. But I got my $10 worth and more, and I would buy this with my own money. Yeah, I got a code. Hey, I'm writing articles and I'm doing things for the VR industry. I think we're providing a service here. I'm going to try to get codes. And if that makes me a bad guy, then I'm a bad guy. But I had a freaking wonderful time with that game.
Something you mentioned earlier, Anthony, where you were saying, you get this the first time you go into certain experiences and you come out of it in a high. I've had that a few times. Usually when that happens, I'll probably sort of message you guys or something like that, because it does happen quite often in VR. You think, this is incredible. This is one of the best VR experiences I've ever had. And actually, there's a game coming up that we'll be talking about, which I felt a little bit like that with this past week. But it's interesting because I still think, the feeling of that first time can probably diminish slightly, but the thing that hits you that first time is valid. You can't get away from it. It's still a valid experience. So if it hits you that hard, then it's still worth mentioning. Dude,
when I came out of that first playthrough, it was just because everything was so colorful. Like every team, like all the different games that you get into, it's like the colorful teams, the stadiums. I'm a guy, like I played these games in the 90s, like Tecmo Bowl and Madden. And this kind of has almost kind of a retro-ish cartoony feel to it. The little Weeble Wobble guys. Oh man, it was like Christmas morning for me. And I wrote in my article, I said, maybe the honeymoon period will wear off, and it's worn off a little bit, but I'm still playing. I'm still throwing a pass that is like, oh shit, I don't know if I should have thrown that pass. It's going to get intercepted. And then it perfectly lands in the guy's arms. And you feel a freaking elation, man. There is some legit play mechanics to this game. Like if somebody tries this game, yeah, you're only the quarterback, but the quarterback is got a good feel to it, because like you can try throwing like a bullet pass and sometimes it hits into the ground and you have to get a feel for it. It's hard. It's not easy. You're not going to play this game and immediately be throwing touchdowns every time. You're going to be throwing a lot of interceptions. You're going to be throwing a pass where it's like, man, I didn't throw the pass like that. It takes time to get the feel for this game, but you'll learn how to, like the number one thing I do in this game is like I have a wide receiver, he's going this way and then he cuts that way. And what you want to do is you actually want to throw the ball like 2 seconds before he cuts the other way. You know what I mean? And you can get the guy on the run. And if you get him on the run and the ball goes over like this and lands on his little shoulder thing, and he is off to the freaking races. It's almost too easy. I've kind of figured out almost like a cheat play where I can get a touchdown like every single time. And Steve did play this. It's too bad that he's not on this episode, because he played it and he liked it. He actually has like one of the highest scores on the entire leaderboard.
Yeah, Steve played Luna as well. He just it's a shame. Hopefully he'll give his impressions on all this stuff next week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, that sounds great, and I've like never played a football game and had no interest in it, but just like the planning element that you described and like the atmosphere, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, the stadiums is really what makes it for me. I'm a hardcore football nut and I'm a VR guy. So it's a special situation. That's why that like some of the people probably saw my thread and they're like bought it immediately, but they're not like a football nut like I am. And the vibe didn't hit them the way it hit me. So, but my experience was 100% valid in my opinion. But anyway, why don't we go back to Gary? Gary, I think you were going to start talking about, we were talking about with Luna, that you get into these experiences that you have to kind of go with the flow. And there's a game that I think all of us maybe have played a little bit. What's the game, Gary?
Xing is a game that Steve mentioned last week, actually. he spoke a little bit about it. He was still very early on, I think he played about 45 minutes of it, but he gave a good idea of what the game is about, and it sort of piqued my interest into trying this one as well. So I went into it a few days ago, and yeah, this is a really, really great experience. In terms, the thing that first hits you is just how great the game looks, the visuals. And I've often mentioned in the past how when I play a VR game, I want it to be that I'm in a pleasant, a nice place, my surroundings are nice and pleasant and this kind of stuff. And Xing does that probably better than any other experience that I've had. You're on sort of a tropical island, it's got fantasy elements in there as well. But Xing is a puzzle game, and you're going through very environmental based puzzles really as you're progressing through. Nothing will really tax you for too long or anything like that. But the game is just it's atmosphere. It's atmosphere, graphics, and music. Really, I think the ambient music in the background is very good, and it matches the gameplay. But I love this, Chris. I think you played a little bit of Xing. Is that right? Oh, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I did play this, and I agree with you. Like, the atmosphere is really great, and it has like a Myst vibe to it. I see a lot of people kind of say something similar to that. But this game makes me need a new graphics card. Like, I'm playing this on a 980, and I want it to be clearer. I can bump up the super sampling to like 200%, and then it looks great, but I'm getting like, I don't know, 30 FPS or something. But like, man, this game looks great, and it really makes you want to get a new graphics card. But like you said, like it's cool. It's a puzzle game, but it's mostly about the atmosphere, and it seems like just kind of a laid back experience you'll just kind of do for like a few hours. I don't know. I'm definitely going to finish it. It's
yeah.
great.
I'm going to finish it too. I think you're absolutely right. It's just a game that you can have sort of going along in the background while you're playing other stuff. You can just come back to this every now and again if you want a very sort of relaxed kind of game where you're surrounded by these really lush environments that look fantastic. But in terms of performance, I agree. I'm playing it on a 1080 Ti, and I have to turn a lot of the settings down in order to not get it into reprojection or anything. But it looks fantastic. And I love the fact that you can look up to these cliff faces and see these palm trees and things like that in the distance just swaying. And the water, the reflections on the water and everything, it just looks fantastic. Yeah. So, Anthony, you've played a little bit of this as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I have played this. And you know what this is? This is like a chill game. If you want to relax, if you want to chill, this is your game. This is the game for the stoners out there, actually, because it's so relaxed and it's so chill. And there was one point in this game. So the game has like a daytime and a nighttime mode, almost like Sonic CD or something. Like you switch from one environment to another, and you go into these like little portals where it switches from daytime to nighttime, and you'll see the sun. It quickly, the sun quickly goes down. It becomes nighttime, and then everything has this like nighttime vibe. And at one point, I was just out by this sand, and I love exploring. Okay, so I'm into exploring. Like, that's my thing. I love to explore a new world. I love VR. It's slow. There's no combat. There's no zombies in this. There's no guns. You're just slowly exploring this world. But I love this type of stuff. And the atmosphere is so nice. But I was over in this one area. It was nighttime. I'm on this beach, and the ocean, the water looks actually pretty damn good. And you know what I did? I freaking got down on my carpet, like with my hands back here, like I'm just chilling on the beach. And I'm looking at this water. I'm looking up at the stars. I'm looking at the sand on the beach. And I have a 970. I mean, you guys are blessed. I have a 970. And there is a Liocene to the 12th degree, but it still looks beautiful. I mean, I can... Like, that stuff bothers me for a second, and then I forget about it, and I'm just exploring the world and enjoying the world. But I was just sitting there on this beach, and I'm like, I'm just chilling here. I mean, I can kind of lay down. And the cool thing is like, sometimes if you try to do that with a certain game, the floor is like all messed up and it doesn't work. But with this game, it worked perfectly fine. All I need is like a kiddie pool that is filled with sand, and then I can sit in it and put a little thing of water too, and I would be right there on the beach. But as far as the game goes, I mean, it's puzzles and stuff, right? It's kind of like Chris said, it's kind of Myst, Abduction. It's kind of one of these like almost kind of a point and click exploring kind of a game, which these kind of games in VR work so well. You have these little, it's interesting because like you're on this island and it's mysterious and you don't really know what's going on. And they have these like little fountains almost where you can grab something in the world like a rock or a shell or a coconut or a pineapple, and you can put them inside these bowls, these like fountain bowls that are there. And it makes a response, like words magically appear. And it's like, I love coconuts. You know, you grab a coconut, you put it in it. I love coconuts. And then you keep grabbing coconuts and I have a lovely bunch of coconuts. And so every once in a while, you'll get like a little tip or hint from this. It's like you're communicating with the island or something. It's like you're looking at some ruins of some past civilization and you're trying to figure out how to do things. And the puzzles that I've encountered are relatively simple, and but it's enjoyable. It's fun. I'm having a great time. This game is $20. We did get a key, but for the $19.99 that this game charges, like I thought this game was going to be like 34 or something like that. $20. I think this is a great value. Like it reminds me a little bit of Windlands. It kind of has a little bit of that Windlands vibe. There's a little bit of platforming. The only negative thing I can go to with this game is that when you're wearing a headset, like for me with my Oculus Rift, I put on my Oculus Rift, but I have to take that Oculus Rift and go like this, you know what I mean? And get it up into my face so that I can block off the light leakage. And the only downside of doing that is it's like really up on my face. You know, I've mentioned the Jeff Gerstmann Oculus face, and that does happen all the time. But the only downside I'll say with this game is like the first time I played it, I played for like 73 minutes. I was just in it. I was loving it. I was exploring every little nook and cranny of the island. You know that you can walk out into the water. If it's not super deep, there's certain areas where you can walk across an entire area of water as long as it doesn't fall down and get deep. And so I was exploring all kinds of nook and crannies. But what happened is when I finally got out of there, I was like, man, I'm kind of drained, you know? And so the only thing I'll say about like these chill kind of experiences, or maybe like controller-based experiences and stuff like that, the only downside I'll say is that our current VR headsets, from a standpoint of comfort and from the resolution and the eye strain, and you combine all that stuff, there is a little bit of a wear and tear factor in terms of like it drains you a little bit. And I can kind of get the argument where some people I have friends that are like, I don't want to play a game like that. I want high impact. You know, I want the sword in my hand. I want, you know, Robo Recall. I want something happening, you know, and I kind of understand that from the standpoint is if you're going to get worn out and you're going to have this eye strain and you're going to have this headset on you, yeah, if you're in a more powerful experience where stuff is really happening, I can kind of understand that, where if you're in a chill experience that lasts a long time, it can kind of wear on you a little bit. But I still had a ton of fun with this game. I'm going to try to play it all the way through. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think to me, I'm a little bit probably opposite to that. I feel like by putting this headset on, you know, we've mentioned it before, how there's like a suiting up to VR and this kind of stuff. You have to get your headset on, get comfortable, get it positioned right, and then you're away ready to go in this game. And for me, playing something like Xing, I can spend longer in that and sort of more get involved in the experience than I can with something like Robo Recall. As much as I like Robo Recall, to me, I've sort of had my fill of that game after 20-30 minutes. I know some people like to play that for a long time, but with Xing, because it's so relaxing and the puzzles are so sort of meandering, you know, you're sort of wandering through, exploring these environments, there's a lot of secrets to find in Xing as well. You know, if you go in the right places, you can find all these secrets and stuff. The final thing I'll just mention quickly is I tried this game on both the Rift and the Vive, and for whatever reason, it was the performance was slightly worse on the Vive than it was on the Rift. I don't know why that would be, and it was nothing to do with going into reprojection or ASW or anything like that, because I set them both up to a level where they shouldn't really need to do that. They were sort of very similarly matched, so I wasn't going into ASW with the Rift, and yet when I used those same settings in the Vive, it didn't run quite so well. So I don't know what's behind that, but yeah, so that's just something to mention.
Chris, do you have any thoughts on any of the stuff we've been talking, or any of my rant or anything?
Maybe one more thing about this game is it has really good like voice acting and stuff. I'm not that far into it, so I don't know if that continues, but at least in the first 20 minutes or so, like that really adds a lot. Like you're reading this thing about this tribe and this person who survived, and you can actually hear her voice. And I just thought that was really well done how they incorporated those. So
yeah, and the music is really nice. Like the music is really good as well. Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know, Gary, do you want to go into the next game that we got? Dimension Hunter is a game that, did you get to play that, Gary?
Yeah, I'll probably leave this to you because I literally played about 15 minutes of this game. You know, we played the demo a while ago and I really enjoyed it, and I think the full game is doing a much better job in total, really. But I'll leave it up to you. I think you've played a little bit more.
Yeah, so I mean, we played the demo of this, like, I don't know how long ago that was, but I thought that demo was perfect. It was the perfect kind of demo because you get into that demo and you're going through the whole entire thing. And then when the demo is over, you're like, man, that felt good. I want more of this game. Like, when is this game going to come? Because all this is very fun. You know, back when I played the demo, an interesting thing about that demo is I didn't know this. Like, I thought you were on rails, and I thought that that was just the way it was. I didn't know that there was an option where you could turn that off. But when I was in the demo and I was on rails, it didn't bother me. It was like, you know, it's like you're on a slow moving roller coaster or something. And for me, it was just the music. It's the music hits. I'm like dancing around. I'm glad I don't really do Let's Plays anymore, because if I did a Let's Play for this game, it would look so freaking goofy because I would be dancing and shaking. Honestly, speaking of that, I kind of wish this game leaned into the almost like a rhythm action thing at the same time of shooting, where if like you're going down the halls and like there's little things you can hit with your guns and then shoot guys, that would be kind of cool. But I had a ton of fun. I mean, the demo and this, there's really not much of a difference between this and the demo. It's just the game just keeps going. You know, you go to level number 2 and you go to level number 3. It just kind of keeps going, but it's basically the same thing. If you like the demo, you're going to like this.
The thing, sorry, Anthony, just quickly, did the demo actually have free movement? I didn't know that was an option in the demo.
I didn't know it was either, but I mentioned somewhere that it wasn't, and then everybody came in and said no, it wasn't. Like, see, the problem is I get into a lot of these VR games and I just want to get the game going. And a lot of times I don't search for every little option that there might be. And a lot of times in these VR games, like if you look over there, there might be a little option button, but you never freaking saw it, you know? So I didn't know you could, but in playing the full version, I knew that you could make your own locomotion. And so what I did was I put it on trackpad locomotion and I put it on the fastest possible setting. And then so I'm holding my guns out like this and pushing forward on my thumbstick, you know, moving down the hallway, then moving down this hallway, and then these robot guys come out. One of the ways I describe this game is like, this is the most fast action, like quick burst of fun type of game that I've played since maybe like Super Hot, but I don't want to overblow it. Like, this is not like Super Hot doesn't have anything to worry about. But this game does provide a similar kind of a burst of action, and it's just, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the robots of the first level. Like, the one negative thing I have to say about this is when I got to the second level, the artistical design did not quite hit me in the same way as the first level. Like, the first level, everything is gray. gray, black, red, different shades of pink, different shades of red and gray and black. And you're like in these hallways. It's kind of like you're in a space station or something. And there's these robot guys. And I loved that first level. And I love the music of that first level, especially. And I'm like, yeah, this is fucking awesome, And the music is blasting, and I'm blasting these guys and just having a great time. When I got to the second level, it was like a completely different look. And there's like these werewolf things or something that I'm shooting, and it's kind of dark, and it's almost like you're in a cave and stuff. And I thought that like the reds and the blacks and the gray, it's still going with that same type of color, but it's like it's kind of hard to see stuff like in this cave that you're in. And I was like, this isn't quite as good as that first level. Have you guys ever noticed this with games? Like a game will have a really good first level, and you'll have such a great feeling about that game, but it was mostly just that first level. You get beyond that first level, and it's like, yeah, it's still fun, but it's not quite as good as the first level.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't think of any specific examples of that, but I know what you're talking about. And I haven't played enough Dimension Hunter to sort of get past the first level yet. But the one thing I'll say is that because it's got this free movement now, it's a different game than playing it on rails to me. And I think it adds a lot. That's all I want to add.
It's also, it's also not very expensive. Like this game launched with a 40% discount, I believe. So it was like, what, $10 or something? So I think the normal price might be like $15 or something like that. But it was, it's not very expensive. So that's good as well. But I don't think this is like, if you run out and get Dimension Hunter, I recommend it. It's a fun game. I'm really loving it, and I'm going to try to play it all the way through. But this is not the kind of game that is going to hold you over for a month. This is not that game. This is the kind of game where, like you were saying, Gary, if you want a 25-minute burst, you need to have these games. We all need to have these games where sometimes you don't want to spend an hour and a half in a game or get into some deep, long, drawn-out thing, and you just want like a quick 20-minute burst of action. And that's where, and especially if you want to dance, I put this in my accidental exercise category. I love these games. Now, I know some people hate this stuff. Like some people don't want to get all sweaty and all that, but I love these games that get me up and moving. I'm not like an exercise nut in any way, shape, or form, but if I can play a ton of VR every day, especially stuff where I'm dancing around and I'm shooting and I'm moving my arms and I'm doing all this stuff, I'm burning a few calories, So I love that. Like that's an extra bonus. Alrighty. So is there any other games we need to talk about, or should we go ahead and just get into the news?
I just wanted to mention, we talked about Into the Rhythm VR a few weeks back. It's like that drum game that's kind of like Guitar Hero. It only had 4 songs back then, and now it has 20. So I just wanted to add that. Like I've been playing it a little bit more now that there's more songs. So that kind of makes it have a little more value, I think.
Yeah, I think Steve played that game as well, didn't he? You guys were talking about that last week, but it sounded pretty good. I've mentioned before, I'm not really into rhythm games, but if you do like those, I think you both recommended it.
Alrighty, so I guess we can go ahead and move on to the news. I know this is a little bit weird this week. We decided to flip things around, but we wanted to get in game discussion, and we didn't want to feel rushed about it. So I feel pretty good about that. And there's not a ton of news, nothing like earth-shattering, but we will try to cover some of these big topics. Okay, so the first big news story that we have is Oculus has rolled out their refund policy for Rift and Gear VR digital content. Now, the thing is that Oculus was doing this on a trial basis in Europe, or maybe it was just in the UK specifically, but I know they were doing this on a trial basis. And the idea was that it was expected that if it worked out, if everything worked out for them, this would be worldwide. It would go worldwide with this. And I think this is something that all these companies are going to have to do this, because there's different laws and regulations in different territories where this is kind of like almost like a requirement, like you kind of have to do this. And so now it's came to the US, and this is really important because everybody was buying stuff on Steam, And it was like, why not buy it on Steam? Because you have that refund policy. But Gary, why don't I kick it over to you? Do you have a few more details on this story?
No, I mean, the only thing to mention really is that it's pretty much identical to the Steam refund policy as well for the Rift purchases. So, it's within 14 days of purchase or under 2 hours of actual game time. That you can refund this. It's an automated process, so you can submit it and it will just go through automatically. You don't need to do anything beyond that. That's for the Rift. If you're using a Gear VR, it's slightly different. You've only got 3 days in order to sort of get your refund back, or less than 30 minutes of playtime. So I guess with the Gear VR experiences, some of those are a little bit shorter anyway. So that's probably the reason behind that decision. The other thing to mention on this is that the refund policy it doesn't include movies, bundles, DLC, or in-app purchases as well. So it's just for sort of full titles that you're buying, which makes perfect sense. That's what I think everybody would expect to happen. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think it's great that they're doing this, and it makes sense for Oculus because people do purchase from Steam because they have that option. And the other thing is that we often talk about how certain VR experiences are susceptible to how well certain people will cope with them. So demos are a great idea. Failing having a demo, this is the second best option. Nobody wants to abuse the refund system, but if a game comes out and for whatever reason, motion sickness or something like this, you're unable to play it, I think this is a great option for them people to have.
Yeah, I wish I had it when I had Batman, which I still can't play. I don't know.
What part of Batman is it? What?
It just doesn't load.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Maybe I should contact support now that they kind of have this refund policy. I've only played it for like 10 minutes, so I don't know. I mean,
Chris, all you have to do is just completely wipe your computer, like completely reload Windows, and then re-download it. It'll work fine. It's not a big deal.
That's true. I bet people have probably suggested that to me or something. Yeah. But no, yeah, it's a great policy. I'm glad about it.
Chris, let me ask you though about this policy, because I don't know, for some reason, I don't know why I like worry about developers. Like, why should I be worrying about developers? But in VR, because we do have these shorter experiences, like when I heard about this 2-hour thing and the 2-hour thing on Steam as well, do you ever worry about like some of these games where they don't really have a 2-hour experience? Like, aren't people just going to abuse the shit out of this?
I think some people will, but hopefully most won't. But I think you're right, though. There should be some sort of like bracketed system. So like if your game has like a 10-hour play length, then maybe the 2-hour thing is reasonable. But if your game is like a half hour, maybe it should just be like a 10-minute refund window. I don't know. I think it should scale with the game and maybe kind of show up as like we're on the Oculus store. It says like supports touch. Then under that, it could say like 30-minute refund policy. I don't know. Something like that. And then maybe even, I feel like this isn't integrated into VR well. I don't think it is, at least. I think like only the desktop app you can actually request the refund. But maybe like in the Rift menu, it could have like a timer or something. I don't know. Like, because sometimes you get lost and then suddenly it's 2 hours and you're like, wait, I don't know. I feel like they could do something that could make it a little bit easier to know when you're in the window or not.
I think, yeah, a percentage of the total game length time would make sense really for this kind of stuff. I guess the difficulty with that is the fact that game length is sort of in some ways subjective, because some people can play a game and sort of rattle through it in under 2 hours, whereas for the average user it would be sort of over 5 hours or something like that. And it's difficult for developers to really put a number on game length. I think there's been some controversies in the past where developers brought games out where they've said they're a certain length of time, and then people have said no, I got through it in half that amount of time and stuff. So it's difficult to put a number on that. I think that would be the ideal solution though.
Maybe they could do it like a level-based thing. Like maybe that would be more ideal, because then people know like level 2 means I can't refund. I don't know. The issue is it needs so much integration with the game itself. Like you need an API that can, it gets complicated, but I think that in the end, that's probably the best solution.
Yeah, I always hope though that people don't just like use this like it's freaking GameFly, you know, and they buy every game and and they refund like 80% of them, because that's kind of lame. But I mean, I know there's people that are going to do that, but you know, it just is. I guess it's the nature of the beast. Okay, so our next news story, Samsung. So I've always had Samsung as kind of this dark horse out there, similar to Magic Leap, where I've always had it in the back of my mind that Samsung is going to have some kind of kick-ass headset that's going to come out of nowhere, and it's going to slap everybody across the face, and it's just going to be incredible. I don't know why I have this like thought process in my mind, but this is not that story. This is a little bit different. What's happened is there's been a leak where we have seen a Windows mixed reality HMD coming from Samsung. And it does look nice. It does look like maybe it could be the nicest version of this. When we first heard about Windows mixed reality, we heard that it's going to be kind of a range, that there would be the very base reference design, which is like the Acer, the $299 one, which has all the basics, but that there might be slightly higher end versions, maybe higher resolution, who knows, maybe just a better build design. So it's a little not as flip floppy, maybe if you're moving around quickly or things like that. But we get this leak. Now, I don't know that there's a whole bunch more information here. Gary, do we have any other information, or is this just purely a shock factor that no one was expecting Samsung to jump on this bandwagon?
Yeah, there's not a lot of information about it, because the person that tweeted this original image has said, I think it needs to be taken with a grain of salt, this leak. So they did mention that on there, but you know, when you look closely at these images, it's got headphones which are built into this mixed reality headset, which are not usually built into any other mixed reality headsets we've seen so far. Now, the headphones are made by a company called AKG, which is actually owned by Samsung as well. So it sort of lends a little bit of weight to it from that point of view. Although, you know, I suppose if it's a hoax, it could, that they would have taken that into account as well. It's difficult to say. But yeah, there's almost no information on this at all. So we're just going to have to wait and see if this is actual, if this is a reality or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Chris, I was just going to ask you this, Chris, from an Oculus standpoint, because it seems like a lot of people kind of were irritated by this, almost like insulted by this. Should people feel insulted by this, or is business going to be wild out here?
Yeah, probably. Samsung is known for just working with everybody, and I'm a little bit annoyed by it, especially more so by the Google Daydream support on the Gear VR headsets, because like it seems like Oculus kind of helped design those, and then they're like, oh, they work with Gear VR, or, you know, Daydream. But yeah, in terms of this, I'm not really too upset about it. It looks super nice though. Like it looks like there's a lot of fake leather kind of stuff. It almost is like it has like a VR cover type leather design built in. So it looks like it's a pretty comfortable thing, like just based on the images. I don't know. Like, yeah, I guess you kind of have to look at the images to really see, but it does look nice. And who knows, maybe it would have boosted specs. I'd hope so, considering how nice it looks. So we'll see, I guess, huh?
I have to admit, though, like for me, I'm actually disappointed by this news story, not because I felt like Samsung is like screwing over Oculus or anything like that. I'm a little bit disappointed because, like I said, I had this vision in my head. Like I go back to that interview with Gabe, you know, when they were sitting on the table there and they were being asked questions, and Gabe was like, yeah, there's going to be headsets coming in 2018, higher resolution, built-in wireless. And I don't know, I don't know why I assumed, but I thought maybe Valve and Samsung, you know, like I'm thinking, I've always thought that Samsung might come with just like the dream of dream VR headset that is Steam VR compatible, like really high resolution with all their technology being brought to bear. And if they really have this Windows mixed reality headset, that kind of makes me second guess whether or not that's ever going to happen. That's the only disappointing thing for me. I mean, this is great for Microsoft though, because goddamn, everybody and their mom is making a headset for this thing now, and it really strengthens that entire ecosystem, having a high quality manufacturer like Samsung getting involved as well.
Yeah, I feel like this is what Steam should have done, or Valve should have done, like, to begin with. They should have reached out to like HP, Acer. Like, I don't know. It feels like this could have been a Steam VR thing. This whole ecosystem would kind of make Steam VR better. But, I guess at the same time, they all work with Steam VR. It just feels like it should have been directly that. I don't like the Windows thing as much.
Yeah, so let's go on to our next story. Now, this one is kind of weird. Okay, so Sony apparently isn't very happy with the fact that, well, what they're not happy about is they feel like they have too much of a lead in the virtual reality market in general, that there's not enough competition, and they feel like that's disappointing to them because they feel like a rising tide raises all boats. You know what I mean? And so they feel like if the PC VR thing was stronger, maybe if Xbox was doing some more of a VR push. This story's kind of weird. Let me click on this because I actually, oh damn it, I can't open it. But I know it was one of the Sony executives was talking about this, and there's not a ton of information here. He's basically just saying that they're a little bit disappointed with their lead. I don't know where to go with this story. Chris, why don't we go back to you? What do you think about this idea that they're disappointed that they have such a comfortable lead right now?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like the article on Upload VR kind of reads into the lines maybe a little bit more than it should, because it's really only one sentence that this guy said, which is that, they're not entirely comfortable just because, like, like you said, Anthony, it's like a rising boat. So like they need more competition. They're really just saying like there's not enough companies getting involved to justify like having such a big lead. Like, I don't know. It's nice to have competition in some ways to make the market better and just more people know about VR and stuff. So I get what they're coming from, but at the same time, I feel like they're not really disappointed being the market lead, obviously, since they get a lot of sales. But I think they do want some competitions, then they can release something better. And I don't know. It's weird just because of the console space, though, because like they're the only console VR thing right now. And I think that might be kind of more what they're talking about. Like Xbox isn't doing anything at all right now, and that's kind of concerning to them, I'd bet.
I was just going to say that exact thing, Chris. Actually, I think it's probably more directed to Xbox than anything else, because you're right. This is really one sentence, and it was. I've just got this up here now. It's Andrew House. It was an interview with Reuters, and what it was, he said, with such a brand new category, you want a variety of platforms all doing well to create that rising tide and create the audience. Now, to me, you could take that as him implying, VR, PC-based VR isn't doing quite as well. But yeah, I agree. I think he's probably aiming towards Xbox. Xbox is their rival console. And also, Nintendo, I don't think we need to take Nintendo out of this equation either, because it would be great if Nintendo got on board with this kind of stuff. And, Xbox, I'm sure Microsoft have plans with Xbox to do something with VR, but it feels, I guess from Sony's point of view, it feels like they're doing all the legwork in order to get VR out there as into the general public, the mainstream, really. And they want other companies like Xbox to come on board now and help with that, rather than just allow Sony to do all the legwork and then just jump on when it gets popular, if it gets popular. This is probably what he's referring to. But yeah, there was something else that I wanted to mention along with this. It's not really, it's not really related, but it's just something I've got under notes under this story as well. There was something a UK investor said at one point, we're in danger of talking ourselves out of VR and AR. And he was saying, it's the fact that patience is needed and investors need to continue to support this category. And I don't know, I think it's all related to this kind of stuff, really, what Andrew House was talking about there. A lot of patience needs to go into this and allow VR to grow. And what Andrew House is saying, they can't do it on their own. Sony can't win this on their own. They need other companies to come in and compete with them in order to, as he says, they need a rising tide to get it out there into the mainstream.
Yeah, I think Chris, you hit it on the nose. You too, Gary. This is basically directly aimed at Xbox, and Xbox is they have a problem this Christmas because their whole thing is Xbox One X, right? Xbox One X is their big thing, and that's an expensive piece of hardware, isn't it? Like $500 or something. I don't even know how much those things are, but I believe it's like $500. So the problem that Xbox is in, I'm sure they would like to also have VR right away as well. But I think what Xbox decided is we can't hit with two $500 items like that in the same year. I mean, we're trying to sell this Xbox One X. It's like $500, and then we're going to try to tell people to buy another $350 headset on top of that this same year. We're going to ask people to shell out like $900. And so I think what Xbox is going to do is they're like, no, this is the year of the Xbox One X, and next November we will have our headset, and it will have had time to incubate on the Windows mixed reality platform. There will be maybe some more experiences. Remember, we have this conference coming, I believe, on October 3rd, next week. There could be some interesting announcements. We might hear about a Halo thing. Maybe Forza 7 is going to have a special VR mode. There's all kinds of possibilities. So I still think there's some hope there, but yeah, I can kind of get what Sony's feeling as far as that goes. Okay, so the Steam VR Home Beta update. I don't really have anything on this one, Gary. Did you want to mention anything about this?
Not really. I mean, it's worth mentioning because it was sort of a reasonably big update to Steam VR, and what they've done, they've added this thing where you can import trophies and display them in your own home space within Steam VR, which are based on the games that you've been playing. So any game that you've got in your library, you can create a trophy and place it on your shelf, and then it will change color or change shape, or something changes as you get more achievements within that game. It's got another update where you can go into like a gymnasium, a boxing ring, and do various things in there. It's a little bit more interactive than some of the other environments and stuff. So yeah, it's probably a relatively big update. I've not really gone into it too much, if I'm being honest, though.
Okay, one Steam related thing that we probably should bring up is this is kind of just a little throwaway thing, but I think it does have possibly some ramifications for VR, is that the Steam Dev Days, which is normally in October, most people were expecting it this October, but there was never any announcement, and people were like, what's going on? Is there going to be a Steam Dev Days? Well, we heard an announcement that there is no Steam Dev Days for this year, and there might not even be one in 2018. And what does this have to do with VR? Well, I have a good buddy of mine, right, that we talk about VR back and forth. And I remember, like, I would talk to him about the Knuckles controllers, or I would talk to him about these Valve games that are being worked on. There's 3 VR games that Valve is working on. You would think at a certain point, one of those, we might actually see something about it. And he would keep mentioning, well, wait for Steam Dev Days, wait for Steam Dev Days. Like, that's when we're going to hear the real stuff, And now there's no Steam Dev Days. So when are we going to get these Knuckles controllers? No one knows. And then when are we going to find out about any of these Valve games? Nobody knows. Chris, do you feel like the loss of Steam Dev Days is disappointing in this regard, or do you think they'll just make up their own specific announcement and invite press to come out to Seattle and do it that way?
Yeah, it's disappointing because it's kind of the thing that brought the community together, just like the development community. I remember watching lots of their talks. They had all these talks about how VR worked and like all the research they've been doing about certain locomotion methods and all that type of thing. It just felt like there was a lot of useful information, and developers got a lot of inspiration out of those events to then make more games. So I thought it was always like a worthwhile investment just to have that event. So devs would start and, get hype about Steam, get hype about what's coming up, about new technologies, get a chance to try Knuckles. I bet a lot of developers still don't even have them or have the chance to try them. So I don't understand this at all. Oculus has Oculus Connect coming up pretty soonish. I don't know the exact date on that, but I think Oculus is going strong because they realize, we need an event that brings the community together and kind of lets people experience the new hardware and new ideas we have. So yeah, I'm kind of concerned about that, to be honest.
It seems like Valve is almost like Nintendo. Like they do their own little quirky things, you know. They have their own way about things. Like you were saying, they should have hooked up with all these companies and did what Microsoft is doing. But yeah, I don't know. It seems to me like Valve is kind of like they're marching to the beat of their own drummer, and like they have their plans, but unfortunately we're not going to find out much until they're ready to actually announce something. So that's just kind of the way it goes. But you know what? Speaking of like games that have been like things we're waiting for these 3 Valve games. What about budget cuts? I mean, budget cuts is easily one of the most it was one of the most anticipated games. I don't know, maybe 2 years later, people are going to forget about this thing. But what we did hear is that it is now due for release in 2018. And I think the only thing that happened with this is the Steam page changed it from 2017 to 2018. And I think that's the only thing that happened with this. I don't know if there's any other additional information. I actually didn't read this full story. Gary, what's the deal with budget cuts? Did we find anything else out, or is it just simply 2018?
Well, there was something on Road to VR about this, and I don't know if this came as a result of that date changing on Steam or not, or whether this happened before. But Ben Lang from Road to VR asked Neat Corporation about this, and they responded just saying, we're spending minimal time on PR in order to focus on development of the game. Seeing as we are such a small team, this understandably leads to people wondering about the status. Just rest assured, we are working on the game like a lot. So I think, you know, the fact that it's changed the date now, something is happening. There's some kind of activity. It should be reassuring. The thing is about this game, you know, you alluded to it just then, Anthony. Are we sort of desperate for this game in the way that we possibly were at the beginning of VR? You know, sort of mid 2016. It's a different landscape VR is now, and I think the fact that they've been working so long on this game under Valve's wing, really, you know, I think these developers have been taken under Valve's wing, and they're sort of maybe getting a little bit of support from Valve. So I'm thinking, you know, this game has to do something more than the demo might suggest. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Hey, I got an idea. This is the Knuckles launch game. It's been completely reworked for Knuckles, maybe. I don't know. But you know what's funny about this game? At vrgamerankings.com, we have like our most wanted games that are coming up, you know, and I have to, like, I put release dates, right? And for budget cuts, I've always had it as 28. Well, for a long time, I've had it as 2018 because I knew this thing was being delayed forever. And now that they said 2018, I just changed it to second quarter 2018 because I'm always going to add like 4 extra months on top of it. But eventually we'll get this thing eventually. But right. Speaking, oh, Chris, did you have something to say about budget cuts? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, they said it's on track for early 2018. So it's not just a year. It's kind of more of like the first month or so of 2018, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm betting April or May, maybe, or May. One release date we did get is the Talos Principle VR is going to come on October 17th, and this is Crow Team. And the reason I just want to mention this real quick is I remember, I don't know if you guys have played the Destinations, that's part of Steam, you know, where you can do the photogrammetry and that stuff. Because I remember when I first tried Destinations and I was first trying that photogrammetry, they had that one church in England that you can go to. I mean, it was like a cemetery in England, and you know, you could teleport around, and it was kind of cool. But then there was like this little Talos Principle photogrammetry thing, and I remember being in that. And I actually love that because I was teleporting around, and it was like, man, I was looking at the graphics of everything, and it was like, this is how I picture a future Skyrim in VR kind of looking, you know, like the castles and stuff like that. Of course, there was no interactivity going on, no monsters, no nothing. And but now we're getting the actual real game, and seeing the trailer for it, this looks damn good. And this is in the same category of like Xing, The Land Beyond, and Mist and Abduction. Well, not Mist. We don't have Mist VR, at least not yet. I'm sure there'll be a VR mod at some point, but we've got Abduction and stuff like that. And this is kind of in that same category. Gary, do you have any excitement for, did you ever try that Destinations one? And what do you think about the full game?
Yeah, I did try that. I thought that was great. That was one of the best sort of Destinations areas, I thought it looked fantastic. And I'd never played the game before. It came out, and I heard some opinions on it when it came out. And it sort of, I had a little bit of interest in it, but I never got around to playing it or anything like that. But now it's coming to VR. I'm really excited for it, especially the fact that it's being sort of compared to things like Abduction and Xing. It's really made me interested for this. And also, the developers have said that it comes with the DLC, and the current owners of the game do get a little bit of a discount on the VR version as well. So I don't know if we've got any details on what that discount is or anything at the moment, but that's a good thing, because it's one of the main criticisms for Fallout 4 VR, really, that current owners of that game don't get any discount. So it's good the developers are doing that, at least.
You know, speaking of giving a discount for somebody that owns the first game, The Gallery episode 2, remember The Gallery episode 2, Heart of the Emberstone? It was supposed to be a big September release. It got delayed to October 18th. The developers were kind of apologizing about it, but saying, you know, hey, we're working to make this game better, and now it's coming out on October 18th. And one of the little good tidbits of news here is if you already own The Gallery 1, the first one, you're going to get a small little discount off The Gallery 2. The other thing is, I believe The Gallery 1 has a special price right now, $9.99. So if you want to pick that up now and play through it, I think Steve was late to the party, and he played through that to get ready for this as well. And man, I can tell you guys, mid-October is going to be freaking bananas. Megaton Rainfall. Now, I believe this is just for the PlayStation VR. It's coming to Steam and to Oculus, but a little bit later. I think it's the PlayStation VR version for Megaton Rainfall is coming October 17th. I'll just mention that as another release date we have. But man, if we think about mid-October, it is bananas, because on October 10th, Arctica 1. And then you have Brass Tactics is also coming out like somewhere around this time. You got the Talos Principle. You got the Gallery, Megaton Rainfall. There's some other big game coming on October 19th, but it completely slipped my mind what that game is. But it's like, damn, that week is going to be bonkers. So that pretty much does it. Let's see. Is there any other stories any last stories you guys want to get into before we get out of here?
I just want to mention the fact, I mean, I don't own a PSVR, but I think it's worth mentioning for people that do that on October the 10th there is going to be quite a big PSVR discount to celebrate sort of the 1 year anniversary of the PSVR. So that's worth mentioning for people. So if you head on to PSN, on October the 10th, hopefully you'll get a fair few discounts on there.
Alrighty, and I have to mention for the code giveaway, so 2MD VR Football, I do have one code to give away for this game, and basically I'm just going to make it real simple. If you leave a YouTube comment on our YouTube video for this episode, for episode 55, if you leave a YouTube comment for this video, what'll happen is on episode 56, which we record, it'll run through this next week up through Friday, and I'll take all the comments and just do a random number generator, and one of you guys will win the 2MD VR Football code, and I'll go ahead and message you through YouTube that way. So it's not a big deal. It's just one code, but hey, might as well give it away, right? Let's see. Is there anything else? Obviously, leave a comment for this video if you could. Subscribe to our channel if you could. iTunes reviews are definitely appreciated. I can't think. Is there any other little house cleaning we need to do? Anything?
No, I think that's everything. I think you covered it all.
All right, so that'll go ahead and do it. This has been episode 55 of VR Roundtable. Once again, I'm Anthony, and of course, Gary and Chris join me on this episode, and we'll see you guys next week. So take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.